Um, we just got back from Canyon and we were observing Miss Blackwell. I knew Miss Blackwell before this, actually. I did some volunteer work with her advanced students, and she also came to one of our NAEA meetings to talk about what it's like being a teacher a couple years in. Um, because she's been teaching for 5 years now. So it was really interesting to actually see her get up in front of the students and talk to them because that's something she's really good at. And I kind of would like to talk about that a little bit about how she really cares about her students, and you know she does. Like, if they're trying, she wants to give them 100% of herself. And she also is really intense in a good way. So she wants you to know how much she cares about you, and she wants you to have a good time, and she wants you to learn, and she's all very clear with that. And I think it would be really fun to be in her class. The kids really, really, really loved her. There were so many students who were just in love with her, but there were also a lot of students who weren't enjoying themselves because they weren't trying, and so she wasn't giving them herself. Like, they didn't deserve to have the fun part of her because they weren't even trying in her class. um, and some things that I noticed were her room was a big thing because she just inherited it, and so it's still in the process of being organized. And since the last time I've come in, it's actually been looking like a little bit better. Like, things are organized. She has a whole station for ceramics. It's not super messy, and the walls are covered in art, like student art along right beside really famous art, and I think that means a lot to students. Some things that she has are binders full of different tips. So what she will do is she gets a binder, and for the first project they're doing value and understanding like light sources, and so she'll have a binder full of tips, so like a value scale and what this means and cross hatching, and so she'll put those down on the table so students can look through it, and then if someone's struggling, the students are meant to like talk to each other about it. And then at the front of her classroom, she has a little like shoe holder thing, but instead of shoes, they're numbered and they put their phone in it, and so she can see who didn't put their phone in. And what I think she should do, an opinion of mine, is she should take attendance that way, is have them all put their phone up in and away, and if they don't put it up, they're going to be counted absent. But she doesn't do that, I think, because they use their phones, but there's some ways she could go around that, like using iPads or making them print off pictures just so they don't use their phone and stuff like that. Um, and another thing I noticed with her room is every class we saw with her, she had so many students. She had so many. I think she didn't even have below 30. And that's so overwhelming to see, especially when we're like, the art people had 5 bodies, and it would just seem so crowded in the rooms every class because they were packed full. Every table was full of students. It's crazy, and she barely has enough room in there as it is. So I'm going to go through each class and kind of my comments on it and what I saw. Her first period was advanced, which, talk about like high standards for the rest of the day. Because they knew what they were doing, they got their stuff out. She changed seats because she wanted people to talk more to each other because she thought it was getting kind of cliquey. So, but they got their stuff out and they started working. And usually in art, you want to put on music so they're not listening to their own music or avoiding the project. But there was no music playing because she forgot to turn it on, and they were still working, and they were working really hard on these projects. They were doing self-portraits, and it's just so interesting to see. And her whole guideline for the semester was them choosing out of 9 projects what they wanted to do, and I think they really cared about what they were doing, and that's why they were working really hard, and all of their stuff looked so different, and when you talked to them they were really passionate about what they were doing. And so that really set a high bar for the rest of the day, because we went into digital media, which was her worst class by far. No one wanted to be there. It's one of those classes where it was kind of painful to be in, because like no one was working, no one cared, everyone was just sort of being catty with each other or mean, and it was so sad to see. And Leanne really looked like she got dejected from it, because I don't know if she was really the same for the rest of the day after that class. And it's just really sad to see something like that. And it's really hard and scary when you're going to become a teacher. Like, oh, how will I deal with that when Leanne, who's been working for 5 years, is struggling with it as much as I would, if not, like, I would struggle with it much more than she would. I don't know. But Art 1, that she had, the next 2 classes were Art 1, which were better, not as good as the advanced class, but obviously it wouldn't be. There were a lot of kids in there who didn't really want to be in there, but they were all really nice to each other, and some of the kids were so good and excited and interested in art. When I don't, as a person, I didn't really like the lesson very much. I thought it was a little bit too cookie cutter, because they were just like shading apples, and it's like no one really seemed super interested in it, and they didn't really know what was going on or what to do. And so when we were going around, we were giving them tips and stuff, and one kid was just like, I just don't understand. I don't know what this means. Like, how do I get the shadow? And I was like, well, you gotta do a value scale. And he's like, I don't know what a value scale is. And I was like, oh gosh, I kind of wish I knew how she introduced the lesson, because it could be like she taught them all this stuff and they didn't bother to remember, and now their grade's gonna suffer, or maybe she didn't introduce it enough and they're all confused and don't know how to do anything. It's kind of hard, and I'm a little disappointed by it, but all of those kids really, really liked Leanne a lot, and I really responded to her energy and how she held herself in class. She was really good at bringing them back down when they get too chatty. She would like do their callback, which was like, if you can hear me, say applesauce, and they would all say applesauce, and it would get really quiet, and then she would start whispering what she wanted them to do, so they'd have to lean in and listen. And I thought, it was genius. And then when she went by a girl who was doing really, really well, and she's like, well, what grade do you think you would give yourself on this? And the girl was like, oh, I think I give it 100. I think I followed the directions quite right. And Leanne would look at it, and she's like, I can see you need to work on this a bit. Your darks aren't dark enough. I would give this like a 75. And then she would walk away, and then the girl would go back and work on it, huffily. But she actually added to it, and I don't know how she would have done that. Like, I don't know. It's just a really clever thing to do to get someone to be motivated and keep going and adding and making it better. One thing that stuck with me was a kid in the class who actually pulled me aside and was like, hey, I just want a little bit of help. Like, I don't know how to do this. And so I drew some stuff out for him, and he was having trouble trying to find light and stuff. And we talked a little bit, and he was like, yeah, I want to I want Miss Blackwell to like me. And I'm like, well, you just have to follow directions. And he's like, I'm trying to, and I just don't like following the rules. And I'm like, well, you got to follow the rules. I don't know. It was just weird talking to the students and hearing what they have to say in their opinions and what they care about. And it's just so much different than when I was in high school and what I cared about. I don't know. And I'm really excited to become a teacher, but also completely terrified based off of what I saw. So anyway, that was just my experience. I'm a little worried, like, how am I going to do in block and student teaching? And I know it all comes with experience, but I think this was really important to see both from um, what I can do to be like Miss Blackwell and what I thought maybe I could improve on. And maybe that's a sign that I'm ready to take the next step. All right. Wow, this was long. Thank you.